Hello there! I'm Lapis, Lapis the Jewel Slime, or Jewel Slime Lapis, and a little known fact about me is that I suck at writing intros to scripts, so to skip a few things. Today, I just have one question for you all. Can you beat Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky with only the regular attack? The rules for this run are very simple. We can only use the regular attack. No using moves to damage enemies, buff ourselves, or hinder our opponents in any way for the entire run. Over the course of this challenge, we will never use a single power point for any of our moves. I will allow items to be used as long as they do not affect enemies in any way. Using items to affect enemies in any way is strictly banned, so no seeds to inflict status conditions, no sticks or stones to break enemy bones, and no vile seeds to reduce enemy defense. Additionally, throughout several points in this game, we are joined by escorts, such as Bidoof or Cresselia. While these escorts are not technically part of our team, if these escorts ever use any moves, we must immediately reload to our last save file and restart the entire dungeon we were crawling through from floor 1. And lastly, while the run is technically complete when we scale up Temporal Tower, defeat Primal Dialga, and save all of time, the run won't truly be over until we catch the criminal behind the calamity and save the very fabric of space by completing the game's post-game story. No cutting this run short. If we're doing this run, we're doing it in full from start to finish. Now, before we get this run started, let's first explain what it is we are working with exactly. The regular attack is a typeless physical move with 1 base power, unlimited power points, and I cannot find anywhere online that states what its accuracy is, but after playing this run, I'll guess about 80 to 90%. It also has the secondary effect that it cannot naturally crit, and if it's the only thing we use to knock out an enemy, we only get half the experience rounded down. Yeah, this thing sucks. Oh, and this run was streamed live on Twitch at twitch.tv/JewelSlimeLapis, and if you want to check the VODs, you can over on my Streaming and VODs channel. Both are linked in the description of this video. And one last thing, for real this time, this video took me a couple months to make and is my first video ever made, so why not give it a like, comment, or subscribe to a fledgling creator, eh? That way you can say you were here when it all began. But anyway, without further ado, let's get back to this run. Before we can truly get this run off the ground, we need to do one teeny tiny little thing first. We need to decide on what Pokemon our player and partner will be for the rest of the run. A decision that, if we choose wrong, will cost us hours of painstaking grinding to fix, but like that would ever happen, right? We have a lot of options to choose from, totaling 19 options for our player and 21 for our partner, so we need to start narrowing it down. The things that are most important for this run are 1, a Pokemon's ability, 2, a Pokemon's IQ group, and 3, a Pokemon's defensive typing. When it comes to ability, we can remove all of the Pokemon that have Overgrowth, Torrent, and Blaze. All of these abilities boost the power of Fire, Water, and Grass moves respectively when on low HP. Considering we can't use moves, we can ignore all of these Pokemon. This removes from our list of choices Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander, Chikorita, Totodile, Cyndaquil, Trico, Mudkip, Torchic, Turtwig, Piplup, and Chimchar, bringing our total of choices down to just 7. Right now, we just have Pikachu, Vulpix, Eevee, Phanpy, Skitty, Shinx, and Riolu. From here, we can also remove Eevee, as her ability is just Adaptability, which boosts the power of the same type attack bonus moves. The regular attack is typeless, so it can never be the same type as Eevee, a normal type. Anyway, with our count at 6, let's move on to look at typings. Out of the options we have left, there are 2 electric types, a fighting type, a normal type, a fire type, and a ground type. We can remove the fire type Vulpix, as her typing isn't very helpful defensively, being weak to common types like water and rock. Also, her ability is Flash Fire, granting an immunity to a type she already resisted, so that isn't super desirable. With Vulpix gone, our choices are down to just 5. Now finally, let's move on to IQ groups. Out of the Pokemon we have left, Pikachu is in IQ Group D, Phanpy is in IQ Group E, Shinx and Riolu are both in IQ Group C, and Skitty is in IQ Group G. While all of these are great in casual playthroughs, the best IQ groups for this run are IQ Groups D and G, as these IQ groups come with the unique skill Extra Striker, making it so whenever the regular attack is used, it's used twice, effectively doubling our damage, and making any other IQ skills obsolete. So that's it, right? For this run, we will use Pikachu and Skitty, the only Pokemon to have these IQ groups left in our potential starters list. Well, not quite. As for our partner, we get to choose 2 additional choices in Munchlax and Meowth. Both are normal types like Skitty, so Pikachu is being chosen for this run regardless of which we choose here, as you can't choose Pokemon of the same type as the player for your partner. Munchlax is in IQ Group E, so we can safely get rid of them from our list of choices, as they can't get Extra Striker. Meowth, on the other hand, is in IQ Group G, just like Skitty, complicating this a little bit more. To settle this, let's look at the only things left separating them: their abilities. Meowth's abilities are Pickup and Technician, while Skitty has Normalize and Cute Charm. Meowth's Technician ability only works on moves with a base power of 4 or less, making it completely useless for this run, as it doesn't count the regular attack as a move. And Pickup has a rare chance to get one additional item when moving to a new floor, so long as the Pokemon is not already holding an item. The problems with this are A, only being a chance is not that helpful, B, we can recruit other Pokemon with Pickup if it was helpful, C, we'll need items like the Power Band in the early game in order to boost our damage, and C, if Meowth were to pick up a Graveler or an Iron Thorn, they would start to throw these items at nearby enemies, forcing us to reload to our last save as per the rules of this run. Pickup is not very helpful for this run, and taking it is a very stupid idea that only the least informed of people would ever make. Now, onto Skitty. Her abilities are phenomenal, the best on the entire cast. Cute Charm has a chance to prevent any male Pokemon that hits her from doing anything for several turns, pairing incredibly with Pikachu's Static, which paralyzes enemies that make contact with him. And what's with Skitty's other ability, I hear you asking? Normalize. Despite saying that it enables the Pokemon to use all of its moves as if they were normal-type moves, Normalize also works on the regular attack, unlike Technician, which has no effect. If you would like to know why Normalize works on the regular attack and Technician doesn't, then me too. I have zero clue why this interaction works like this, but hey, I'm not complaining. Normalize increasing the damage of the regular attack by 50% thanks to Stab, on top of the double damage Extra Striker gets, makes Skitty deal 3 times the damage most other Pokemon could possibly do. Skitty is absolutely the best option we have available, and that's why we chose it, right, Past Lapis? So we chose Meowth out of stupidity and a lack of proper research and had to spend dozens of hours grinding before I noticed this was a mistake at the very end of the run. To be fair, Skitty does have some major drawbacks, with the last 3 bosses of the main story being a group of rock types, a group of ghost types, and a steel type, all of which Skitty matches into very poorly. Until you realize that not very effective hits deal 70% damage in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, meaning with Stab, it actually does 105% damage. The ghost types would still only take 75% damage at least. Well, anyway, with Meowth being partner only, we chose Pikachu for our player character, and we can finally begin the run in earnest. We named our 2 boys Mouse and Cat, because without the ability to shoot lightning bolts from their faces, they're basically just a normal old cat and mouse, aside from the whole 2 legs thing. Finally, we set out to start this journey properly. After almost 20 minutes of getting Turtwig on the personality quiz instead of Pikachu because this game hates me, I guess? We get ourselves cozy and watch the opening cutscenes before Coughing and Zubat steal Cat's relic fragment and we're off to our first dungeon. Alright, Beach Cave, our first dungeon of the run, and our first look at how royally we have messed up. First, we go into our settings menu and set walk speed to fast, as well as disable Cat's exclusive move user IQ skill. This will make it so Cat's AI will use regular attacks. If this was turned on, Cat would never use a regular attack no matter what. While we're here, we also disable all of Cat's moves, so he can choose to do nothing but regular attack on his turn. Oh, there's a shelter! How are we looking for damage? Only 5 points of damage? Cool. At least we can kill it in 2 hits, and with Cat helping us out, we can knock it out in a single round. Later in this dungeon, we find a Kabuto, and that took 5 hits to kill. Man, we're so lucky that these things are only level 1 and can't hurt us back. Oh, and you heard that right, by the way. Level 1! It takes 5 hits to knock out what is essentially a baby in this world. Moving on from the terrible damage of this run, we encounter a few more enemies, pick up an Oranberry, and get a floor of stairs directly next to us, in order to reach the pit of Beach Cave. Zubat and Coughing are stuck and unable to properly flee away any further because it's a dead end. Not the brightest plan, huh? After they got themselves cornered, we enter into our first boss fight of the run. Overall, these 2 aren't difficult in the slightest, even with the regular attack. Koffing is level 6, has 27 HP with the moves Poison Gas, Tackle, and Smog, while Zubat is level 3, has 15 HP, and has Supersonic and Leech Life. We go after Zubat first, and we deal about 3 damage every hit, and he heals back an entire hit's worth of damage with each time he uses Leech Life. We get some good luck, and Cat exclusively attacks Zubat, so he goes down soon enough, without ever using Supersonic. Thank God. After knocking Zubat out, Koffing then lands a critical hit, forcing us to use the Oran Berry we picked up earlier, and he also spreads poison onto both of us with his Poison Gas. But Cat quickly picks up the KO after that little bit of resistance. Thankfully, a really easy boss fight to start this run off on a high note. With the tutorial defeated, we can access the rest of the game. 1 chapter out of 20 down, only 19 more, plus the post-game left to go, and it only took us 35 minutes? What? Clearly this run is going to take a lot longer than I thought. After meeting the Guildmaster and making some clips that I can never scrub from the internet hard enough to actually have it do anything.
Hey, I'm Wigglytuff! I'm the Guildmaster! You wanna form an exploration team?
We are asked by Wigglytuff the most dreaded question of the entire run. What is our team name? After pondering for a little bit, after Team Cat and Mouse wouldn't fit, we ultimately decided upon Team Davids, named after the trope David vs. Goliath, a trope typically used when our heroes are underdogs, much smaller and weaker than their adversaries, but they are usually more skilled and have better critical thinking skills. It also plays into the basic names we chose for Cat and Mouse. After thinking of our team name, we receive a proper bag, a map, and some badges for forming Team Davids. And because Wigglytuff is so generous, we also receive a sky blue bow and a zinc band. We then head out to bed, to prepare ourselves for the next coming days of training. Drenched Bluff is up next, and just like a regular playthrough, this place is really easy and not too much of any note. Enemies take about 3 hits for either Mouse or Cat to knock out, which makes fights a much longer process than in a casual playthrough, where you just one-shot them. But because this is still very early in the game, enemies can't dish out enough damage to actually matter. Yet. We reach the 7th floor without any issues or notable threats whatsoever, and find Splink's Pearl, bringing it back to the guild for our first mission to be a success. When we return to the guild, we do our taxes, because tax evasion is a powerful move, and therefore banned by the rules. Then, Mouse and Cat crash face first into their beds, clearing another chapter of this game, and moving on to chapter 3, with only about 30 minutes of time spent. We made some pretty good time on that last chapter, and the entire run so far is only about 1 hour and 5 minutes total. Maybe I was wrong when I said this run would be a longer process than I thought. We are making some really great pace. Oh, hey there, comedic timing, what's up? Ow! You know, the reason why this chapter is called The Scream is because you can almost hear me crying over the realization of how bad my decisions were. After getting a few more tutorials about how all the shops work in Treasure Town, half of which do next to nothing in this run, by the way, we move on to the first major challenge in this run. Mount Bristle, you know it, you hate it, this is a difficulty spike, and in this run, this is a much more interesting dungeon than Drenched Bluff. And by interesting, I mean pain. To start things off, as we walk into the dungeon, we find a Geodude that takes 6 hits to knock out. And if that wasn't bad enough, we soon find a Starly who not only takes 6 hits to knock out, as well as the Geodude, but also, they deal over half of Cat's health with a single tackle. On top of this ludicrous bulk and monstrous damage, they also get the move Quick Attack, having similar damage to Tackle, but this move can hit us from 2 tiles away, something that the regular attack can never do. Starly is a major issue, and even just encountering one could be an instant loss for the run-through of this dungeon, considering we don't have a buildup of items such as Oran Berries and Reviver Seeds. Worse yet, Starly isn't the only issue in this dungeon. As we go through, we start to encounter Nidorinos and Nidorinas, both of which have the same issues of bulk that every enemy has here on Mount Bristle, but also the Nidos have Poison Point for an ability, having a chance to poison us each time we hit them with the regular attack. The Nidos also have Growl, lowering our damage even lower than it already is, and giving more chances for Poison Point to trigger. As if these 3 weren't bad enough, there are also Machop here that use Focus Energy and get easy super effective crits on Cat, chunking his health into the range of terrifying Starly tackles. All of this put together simply proves too much for Team Davids, and we get our first death of this run. Realizing it's just too much, Team Davids is gonna have to use their ingenuity and come up with a great idea. Leave the child alone with the kidnap. Wait, hang on. Oh, sure, the story seems to make it out that Azurill needs our help, but Machop really needs to spend 1,000 Poke to have a Rossberry we don't have delivered to them inside of a random cave on the beach. We end up doing 2 in-game days of missions, 1 in Drenched Bluff and another in Beach Cave. After these missions, we get about 5 orange berries and decide to tackle Mount Bristle once again, where we die on floor 4 due to 2 Starlies blocking our path in a corridor and getting critical hit with a quick attack. After another round of going to Drenched Bluff and Beach Cave, we try Mount Bristle for a 3rd time. 3rd time's the charm, right? Well, we almost died to a Starly on the last floor, floor 9, but thankfully we had an Oranberry spare and managed to knock it out. After clearing floor 9, we reach the summit, where we try to tell Drowzee that he's clearly outnumbered, but after Cat let his nerves get to him, Drowzee figures out that we are clearly outmatched, and so begins our first real boss fight of the run. Drowzee has a total of 100 hit points and the moves Pound, Confusion, Disable, and Hypnosis. We both do about 5 to 7 damage a hit to Drowzee, so it should only take no more than 20 hits to knock him out. However, Drowzee has the ability Forewarn, giving him heightened evasion, making our attacks hit less often. Meaning, a fight that should only take about 10 turns quickly turns into a fight much longer than that. And our awful damage isn't even the biggest problem in this fight. With a critical confusion he gets at the start of the fight, Mouse almost goes straight down, leaving us just barely hanging on with 4 HP. At the start of this fight, we had about 7 Orange Berries and 3 Reviver Seeds, for a combined total of 10 healing items for this fight. But Drowzee is going to have a lot more chances than that to hit us during this fight. On top of all of this, Drowzee has the moves Hypnosis and Disable. Either one could put Mouse or Cat out of commission for several turns. And if Mouse is asleep, we can't use items to heal off that big damage that Drowzee is dishing out. After a few more turns, Drowzee ends up rolling another crit with Confusion on Mouse. And this proves that our survival was only a lucky damage roll, as he takes us out from full health. 2 Reviver Seeds remain, with Drowzee only taken down to half health, and our ability to go through those seeds if Mouse gets put to sleep. Things aren't looking so good. A critical pound and a miss input later, and Cat uses a 2nd Reviver Seed, leaving us with just 1 more, as Drowzee is brought to about 1/3 of his health remaining. This fight is getting right down to the wire. But, thankfully with our Orange Berries, and some luck with high damage and not missing due to Forewarn, we were able to win with a single Reviver Seed to spare. That was a close one for an early game boss, serving as a tutorial for outlaw quests. After the fight, the Exploration Team Federation also sends us an enlarged treasure bag, and they tell us that the special episode Bidoo's Wish is now unlocked. No. We once again get hit with a lack of Yoshi's signature move, Tax Evasion, and eat the 90% wage cut. And that is another chapter cleared, this time with 2 deaths and in about an hour and a half, bringing the total to 2 deaths, 2 hours, and 30 minutes exactly. Ooh, clean numbers. There isn't too much we haven't seen here in Chapter 4. We do a bunch of side quests to progress in-game days before Loudred arrives, asking us to look at pictures of feet. After getting over 10,000 points on the minigame, no, I will not talk about it, we receive our first ginseng, which is useless in this run, aside from selling it to gain 400 Poke. What a weird sentence. This run is weird. Anyway, aside from that, we finished this chapter in about 30 minutes. Nothing more to it. It's a pretty boring chapter, all things considered. Oh well, 3 hours total, on to Chapter 5. Before going out to do our next mission, Chimecho informs us that our assembly is finally open, allowing us to recruit new party members, which is a mechanic that we'll actually use a lot in this run. With extra party members, we could have a lot more regular attacks per turn, which means a lot more damage, which we are sorely lacking in right now. After unlocking that, Waterfall Cave is the next dungeon we gotta go through, and this place is certainly a pretty big challenge. To start things off, we find a local Grimer that takes 4 hits to knock out and is packing poison gas to stop our HP regenerating between fights without a Petra Berry. Not as bad as Mount Bristle though, thanks to some leveling up we did from grinding. These Grimers also have Mud Slap, a super effective move against Mouse, and lowering our accuracy. Devastating for a run with so many hits on each enemy. We make it down to floor 2 when we encounter a threat even bigger than these Grimer. Surskit takes 6 hits to knock out and has the moves Bubble and Quick Attack, allowing it to deal damage, about 40% of Mouse's HP, from well out of our reach. On top of this, if Bubble gets the chance to slow us down, we'll lose half of our action economy. Even though we encounter a Surskit with full health and static activates, paralyzing the thing for 3 whole turns, it turns out that its damage, bulk, and range is just too much for Mouse to take. And we fall, failing our first visit to the Waterfall Cave. Not willing to give up so easy, we go and give it another try immediately. On the second run, we encounter a Lotad, not too dangerous on its own, but this thing takes 5 hits to kill and has Absorb, allowing it to hurt us big time while healing itself. If Lotad is encountered in a group, it will be a massive problem for us. We also find a Poliwag that has Hypnosis, able to put mouse or cat to sleep. Poliwag is another Pokemon that isn't too dangerous on its own, but if we encounter Poliwag with other Pokemon like Surskit, it could spell disaster. And if all these Pokemon weren't bad enough, we soon find Tangela, which has Absorb, like Lotad. But unlike Lotad, Tangela does half our health pool with a single hit. Tangela also has Ingrain, allowing it to heal off a lot of our mediocre damage. With the combination of these two moves, it just keeps healing! Despite all these tough enemies, we eventually get through with a couple of Oran Berries and some great luck. Only a single death was had here. And, surprisingly, that's it for this chapter. Another chapter down with another death and 40 minutes added to the total, bringing us to 3 deaths, 3 hours, and 40 minutes total. By the way, if you haven't already, leave a comment on how many deaths or hours you think this run is going to take. Chapter 6 is going to be a little bit of a longer chapter this time around, and it begins when we first meet Skuntank. Doesn't go super well for us. After running into Skuntank for the first time, I make chicken noises at my partner. I know this option doesn't have any effect on the run, but I knew if I didn't say what I chose to do, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, ask anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Silly references aside, Spinda's Cafe is now open, and with it, a few very useful mechanics. To start off, gummies and max elixirs can be turned into drinks with a small chance for Spinda to have a good feeling about the drink. If Spinda does this, these drinks will reward us 2 extra IQ to whoever drinks them, making our total goal of 750 IQ points on both Cat and Mouse, in order to unlock Extra Striker, much more reasonable by the end of this run. With this bonus, yellow gummies give 7 IQ to Mouse, meaning we only need 108 yellow gummies that each get the small chance for Spinda to have a good feeling about the drink, which is only 86,400 Poke and some ridiculous RNG.
And then we need to do it twice.
Why is this IQ requirement so stupid? In addition to Spinda's Juice Bar, we also unlock the Why Not Recycling shop. With this store, we can trade in our useless items that are banned by the rules in favor of items that either A, can actually be used, B, sell for more money, or C, can be turned into drinks to give us more IQ. Spinda's Cafe also comes with the added bonus of plants giving us extra missions directly, meaning we can actually get more jobs per day. And this is super helpful considering the next story dungeon we need to tackle is Apple Woods, and while the dungeon itself isn't too bad, after the dungeon is cleared, the story progresses to the start of the expedition arc without any ability to stop it. While in the expedition arc, there is no way to return back to Treasure Town in order to use the shops or accept side quests, let alone go to the dungeons needed to complete said side quests. Once we begin the expedition arc, we must go through it in its entirety from start to finish, or we might just softlock the entire run. Normally, while in these parts of the story where Treasure Town is inaccessible, the player can do some more grinding by just grabbing more items and leveling up from side path dungeons. However, we get experience at half speed, and bosses in this arc have as much as 480 HP. In this run, some extra healing items won't cut it if we have a low attack stat. This is thanks to a little known mechanic in Mystery Dungeon. Attacks that do 0 damage don't get rounded up to 1 automatically, which is far more likely to happen in this run than you might think it would be. If we rush into this, then the run will be straight up over thanks to bosses' high health and defense stats. So, while Apple Woods isn't scary in the slightest, the dungeons and bosses we will encounter on the expedition arc are simply too big for us to handle as we are right now. Thankfully, there's an easy solution to this problem. And it's quite easy! We just don't go into Apple Woods! And instead, we spend about 3.5 hours of mindless grinding. Yay! You know, if I chose Skitty, Normalize would carry us and I wouldn't have to do this. Thank you, consequences of my own actions. The main reason we're grinding before the expedition arc and not during it is so we can use Spinda's Cafe. When making drinks with gummies at Spinda's Cafe, we get 1 point in a random stat. This is much faster at raising our stats than trying to level up with half experience, and it also doubles as an excuse to raise our IQ. But if you don't want to sit through my terrible mic quality any longer than you have to, the highlights of this grinding were... We recruit our first friend, a Starly named Bird. We also recruit Emu the Doduo, Bug the Surskit, Pad the Lotad, Axolotl the Wooper, Sewage the Grimer, Rock the Geodude, Spider the Spinnerack, and Crinoid the Lilleep. We get over 10,000 points in the Footprint minigame. Once again, I won't elaborate on why I'm good at this. We also make a whole bunch of mistakes, meaning our death count rises from 3 all the way up to 9. Jesus. we get an insane amount of items, including a whole lot of gummies, raising our IQ to somewhere between 110 and 159 points, and finally, we raise all the way up to Silver rank. After the grinding, we finally head over to Apple Woods, where thanks to all the grinding we did earlier, this place is a complete joke. Effects for Paris and Butterfree make some moments a little more strategic in order to avoid an untimely paralysis or sleep, and of course no amount of grinding will fix the usual 3 to 4 hits to knock out enemies, 1 base power and all. But along the way we encounter a Caterpillar we named Caterpillar because Caterpillar wouldn't fit, as well as Bagworm the Burmy and Dandelion the Hoppet, who proceeded to waste 2 whole Reviver Seeds in generosity. Thank you, Dandelion. And it was also here that Team Davids would first meet their fated arch-nemesis, Beedrill. But after making our way through 12 floors of a fairly easy time, we find the perfect apple tree we were sent to harvest from, and failed the mission spectacularly. As Cat and Mouse are slowly descending into a deep depression, the rest of the apprentices of the guild aren't allowing that in the slightest, and in a heart-touching scene, they banish the depression into the Shadow Realm with the power of being nice to your co-workers. Now, if only we could unionize for better pay. Anyway, after that, we do a few more side quests, get over 10,000 points looking at feet, stop asking me to elaborate on that, and then it's time for the expedition arc. Although, before that, it's the end of Chapter 6, so let's take a look at those statistics. We're at 9 deaths, 9 hours, and 9 minutes. That chapter took 5.5 hours alone, along with 6 additional deaths, and as an addition to the statistics, we had to reload to our last save point a total of 23 times in this chapter due to escorts using moves or Cat picking up and throwing Graveler rocks. Really wish I thought to pick Skitty. But anyhow, on to the next chapter. After Team Davids prepares one final time, they tell Chatot they're ready to set out on an adventure. And we begin the potential end of this run. After some more story, we arrive at Craggy Coast, and this is our first time we're in a dungeon with a forced escort as part of the story. And remember, if an escort uses anything that isn't the regular attack, we must reload to our last save file immediately. It is here we're going to find out the various tricks we will be using for the rest of the run to get past these escort-required mystery dungeons. But before we learn those, our first run into Craggy Coast ends on floor 1 after we encounter Spiel and Bidoof uses Grow, instantly forfeiting the run. And, because the game doesn't allow you to save before going into Craggy Coast, we now need to watch all of the cutscenes. Again. Every single time this happens. And after we sit through the cutscenes for the second time, the next run ends when a random Spiel runs up behind us while we're in a corridor and Bidoof uses Growl on it. And yep, third time's the charm with the cutscenes. In order to not have to watch the long cutscene on every single run, we decided to attempt the side path. The side path is a much shorter, smaller, and easier dungeon, which would allow us to save our game after finishing the dungeon, so we wouldn't need to watch the cutscenes after every failed attempt at Craggy Coast. We successfully clear side path on our second try with no actual difficulties. It is meant to be a place for underprepared players to grind after all. And after we make our way through the side path, we can actually save our game using the Kangaskhan rock mentioned in the cutscenes we couldn't skip earlier. Weird that you can't do it before going into side path, but oh well. All in all, when we return to Craggy Coast, there isn't too much to worry about, aside from most enemies taking 3 hits to knock out, and Gastrodon being able to hit Mouse for pretty decent damage with Mud Bomb. Craggy Coast's main difficulty is Bidoof making us have to reload our save file a grand total of 8 separate times. But you know what they say, 8th time's the charm. Overall, this was an easier dungeon compared to what's going to come right now. This one only took 30 minutes to clear in total. However, before we go into the next dungeon, during Craggy Coast, we find out some very useful information for how the run will work going forward. Firstly, despite Growl being a room-wide attack, Bidoof will only use the move when within 2 tiles of an enemy. And, additionally, he has to have a straight line to the enemy's position, so Bidoof won't use Growl if the enemy is where a knight could move in chess. Lastly, if there is an ally between Bidoof and the enemy he is trying to use Growl on, there's a decent chance he will decide not to use Growl instead. Don't ask me why or how that last one works, but I'm taking this buzzing for what it is. The second piece of useful information we receive is that unlike in newer games of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series, if you spend your turn swapping places with an ally, that action uses up the ally's turn in addition to your own turn. This can be used to continually swap places with Bidoof in order to stall enough time for Cat to knock out an opponent. Additionally, even if Cat is in a location unsuitable to attack an opponent next to Bidoof, by going into the tactics menu, we can change the AI Cat is using to go after foes. With this, Cat will chase down our opponents with a bloodthirsty rage befitting of the fact that Cat is a cat. This information will be on the test, by the way, and that test will be right now, with the second major wall of this run, Mount Horn. Mount Horn is a whole 15-floor mystery dungeon, where Bidoof is once again joining us for its entire duration. This dungeon is the second longest dungeon where an escort has to accompany us through without a rest stop in between, for the main story anyway. Not only that, but these enemies are the second most annoying set of enemies from dungeons with escorts forced onto us. The enemies of this dungeon include Beautyfly, Shroomish, and Parasect, all with Stun Spore, and the latter two have Effect Spore, so every time we hit them, there's a chance that we get hit with either Sleep or Paralysis. If this happens while we need to swap with Bidoof to stop his turns, we instantly lose the run. Back to floor 1. There's also Natu, who has the ability Synchronize. Synchronize can bounce back Pikachu's own static back at us, meaning every time I get hit, the Natu has a chance to inflict me with paralysis using my own ability, which if I need to swap with Bidoof, and I can't, and I instantly lose the run on those turns. And this isn't even the end of it! Venomoth and Aerodactyl have Supersonic. For some reason, Aerodactyl learns that. And if we get confused, we can't swap with Bidoof and yet instantly lose the run back to floor 1 every goddamn time. With so many sources of very likely instant failure in a dungeon that's 15 floors long, this dungeon took so much of my remaining sanity. Which isn't a lot, I can tell you that much. I did choose to do this run willingly. But finally, after an entire hour of grinding attempts, we get through Mount Horn. We did it! Yes! Chapter 8, Groudon's Heart! After an hour and 40 minutes! We did it! Yes! Oh! No more Bidoof! Yes! We beat it. We beat Mount Horn. We beat the dungeon that takes 10 minutes on a casual playthrough. In and out. You want to know what I think? That after all of the time I spent dying over and over again, losing each and every bit of progress I had gained, like it never even mattered at all, like it wasn't even worth going through the effort of trying to actually beat this terrible dungeon, like it would have been better if I just gave up all hope of ever doing this run for good so I would never have to have a run fail to some stupid RNG on the 12th floor again. I actually think this was some of the most fun I have had with a Mystery Dungeon game ever. And you heard me right, in some sick, twisted, masochistic way, I thought this dungeon was actually really fun. And I also don't just mean for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series either, I mean Mystery Dungeon in general. This dungeon required me to think through almost every possible situation on any given turn where I saw a threat. I got to use all of my knowledge on the game to think through all of the cause and effect that my actions would have, and I also got to have some incredibly obscure mechanics hidden deep within the menus, and I had a lot of fun. But thankfully, this fun came to an end after a total of an hour, 40 minutes, 27 resets that Bidoof forced upon us, and we have finally beaten Chapter 7. We can move on to the second chapter in the Expedition arc. There's still another 2 more of these. Oh, and for those of you trying to keep track at home, the total of this run is 9 deaths, 10 hours, 45 minutes, and 50 resets. Exactly. After Team Davids descends from Mount Horn, putting that disaster of a place behind them, they arrive at the guild's base camp for the expedition. Hours late, of course. After admonishing us for this, Chatot swiftly hurries us so that the guild can begin its strategy briefing at last. And after the meeting concludes, we enter Foggy Forest. Foggy Forest here is a dungeon with two terrifying details about it. First of all, we have the fog weather. This weather reduces the damage of electric-type moves used during it. Oh no! How will Mouse spam discharge now? And the second detail that this place has, Smeargle in it, who can use the move Sketch to copy absolutely nothing because we can't use moves, and then they just use Struggle and knock themselves out in a very pathetic fashion. Yeah, this dungeon is entirely a pushover for Team Davids. A very refreshing change of pace after the hardest dungeon of the run. I mean, even some of the enemies here are starting to die in 2 hits instead of 3. That's how you know this place is easy. The only thing of actual note in this dungeon is that this place is where we can go later in the game to recruit 2 Zigzagoons named Raccoon and Dog for their pickup abilities. Insert the 8th comment about not picking Skitty here. This dungeon was an easy first try, done in 5 minutes flat. Nothing more to it. But after Foggy Forest and a huge amount of cutscenes, Chapter 8 is actually finished here. Almost this entire chapter is just story content, and the only dungeon in it is, well, beaten in 5 minutes flat, because it's really easy. This was a refreshingly easy chapter compared to the last one, and only took us 30 minutes, with no deaths and no resets. But that's not gonna be how this next chapter will go. After we cut away from Skunktank getting murdered by Wigglytuff, Chapter 9 can begin in earnest. With Team David standing in front of the entrance to the tower-like pillar that Steam Cave is, holding up the pinnacle is our infamous target, Fogbound Lake. And, after a rousing speech about the adventures that await, Cat heads inside with Mouse following suit. Steam Cave is part 1 of the final dungeon for the expedition arc, and it has a little bit more challenge than Foggy Forest at the very least. The usual 3 to 5 hits to take out enemies having more range than us, and stat effects compounding into really big problems are all here. But Steam Cave has one more problem to throw at us that hasn't been shown before. Enter Magby and Slugma. These two are the most common Pokemon here in this dungeon, and both have the ability Flame Body. This can inflict us with the burn status, halving our damage output and dealing a total of 6 damage to us periodically. But an ability alone wouldn't be much of a threat, so to go along with Flame Body and some great movesets, Slugma in particular has a dangerous moveset of Yawn, Smog, Harden, and Ember. Yawn can put either cat or mouse to sleep, and with how little damage we deal, taking it out before passing out is just not an option here. When Yawn hits us, we just have to face tank our way through the sleep and hope for the best. To make doing this even worse, Smog can inflict poison, stopping our HP regen for the rest of the floor and dealing damage that stacks with burns. Harden needs no introduction and synergizes too well with Flame Body. And lastly, Ember can dish out some decent damage and only adds to chances that we get burned from encounters with this thing. But as hinted at earlier, the biggest problem with Slugma is that it is everywhere! I don't know what it is, but this dungeon in particular spawns enemies way more frequently than others for some reason. And trust me, we'll be seeing the true effects of this little quirk later. Aside from Slugma and Magby, we also have Kricketune, who packs the ever-present Growl, making Flame Body just a little bit more annoying. And Fury Cutter does big damage if it connects enough hits. But, as said before, this dungeon is only a little more challenging than Foggy Forest, and in comparison to dungeons like Mount Bristle and Mount Horn, this is a walk in the park. Before long, we make it to the halfway point on our first try. Now we can tackle Upper Steam Cave, and this is the halfway point, so if we run out of items, we won't be able to access our storage through this Kangaskhan rock. Unless we feel like leaving the dungeon and tackling Steam Cave all over again. Not too big of an issue, but an annoying hassle. Let's just hope additional healing items won't be necessary. Upper Steam Cave, in contrast to its relatively plain lower variant, sucks. This place sucks. It's not too hard or anything like that, but this place is annoying as all hell. It's because of Volbeat. This obnoxious little bug has the ability Illuminate. And have you never heard of what it does? Well, I don't blame you. This ability is absolutely terrible. In the main series, this ability makes it so when a Pokemon with it is at the front of the party, you get twice as many wild encounters. You see where I'm going with this? Well, you're only half right with that initial thought, if it's what I think it is. See, in the Mystery Dungeon series, Illuminate works a little differently to accommodate the dungeon-crawling nature of Mystery Dungeons. Illuminate, instead of doubling the chance for a hostile Pokemon to spawn each turn, instead makes it so every time a Pokemon with the ability takes damage in a turn, they blink at the end of it. When a Pokemon blinks, a random hostile Pokemon is spawned in a random room on the floor. Ordinarily, this isn't too big of an issue. Simply one-shot the Volbeat or just take it out in 2 turns. There is no net gain of enemies there. But in this run, Volbeat can take up to 5 hits to take down, each, without any attack drops or burns. And to compound this, Volbeat has the moves Confuse Ray, Double Team, and Flash. Meaning, if we try to take it on with both Cat and Mouse simultaneously to knock it out in less turns, Volbeat can either just put one of them out of commission, or it can just make us miss half the bloody time. And while they're out of commission, fighting this stupid, horrible bug, the Pokemon Illuminate has spawned can inch their way closer to us bit by bit. And Volbeat isn't the only Pokemon in this dungeon either. We still have Kricketune running around spamming Growl, but now we also have Granbull and a Lumise, both with the move Charm, cutting our attack in half, twice as much as Growl does. Additionally, while there are no more Magby around, there are Magmar around, which are significantly worse. You might think I'm over-exaggerating how irritating this place is, and that this isn't too bad, but nope, I'm underselling this. We genuinely have a moment in this dungeon where we fight 25 Pokemon in a single corridor. That might as well be 2 full-on monster houses back-to-back without items. And we have -6 attack and accuracy with just the regular attack. The only saving grace is that the enemies here hit like wet tissue paper, and the fact that we're bringing in extra healing items for the upcoming boss fight here only helps this further. Speaking of that boss fight, after clearing the 7th floor, it awaits for us. With a very fittingly dramatic entrance, I mean seriously, they really sweated the details for what is usually a pretty anticlimactic boss fight. In this run, however, when Groudon appears, all hell breaks loose, and we welcome ourselves to the most difficult boss fight in this entire run. Welcome to the Thunderdome, folks. It's all going to hell from here on out. Groudon here is level 30, has 480 HP, and a devilish moveset of Slash, Mudshot, Ancient Power, Bulk Up, and Scary Face. The only good part about this fight is that Drought, as an ability, does literally nothing here, and that's where the good part ends. Buckle up, folks, this one's gonna be a doozy. First off, while Groudon's moveset has 5 moves in it that I know of, they can't actually have all of these moves at once. 4 moves are simply selected at random at the start of the fight, and that makes up their moveset for the rest of it. Going down the list, Slash is a high-power physical move that seems to crit more often than not. This move does massive damage and varies from high to ludicrous thanks to that stupid crit chance. Next is Mudshot, a thankfully special move that is not thankfully ground type. Upon connecting, Mudshot lowers the target's speed 100% of the time, and being a stab ground type attack from a legendary Pokemon, if Mouse gets hit with this, it's about half of his health, no questions asked. Mudshot will half our action economy anytime it connects, so the orange berries we need to recover with, if we survive, tough luck, wait till the next turn, and get blasted with a second hit of Mudshot and die. Third, we have Scary Face, and while it isn't dealing damage like Mudshot would, it does have better accuracy, and lowering our speed is already a dangerous enough effect. With our speed lowered, we have less time to heal or deal damage, and more time for these next moves to elevate this fight to the nightmarish status it has earned. Fourth, and the first of the 2 run killers in this behemoth's moveset, is Bulk Up. By far the most consistent run-killing option Groudon has. With this move, Groudon makes his already incredible damage with Slash even higher, and defense becomes untouchable. Literally. If Groudon gets more than 2 defense boosts in the fight, Cat won't be able to hurt him at all. And Mouse will be stuck with only about 4 damage a hit if we're lucky with a high damage roll. And at plus 5 defense, damage will be near impossible. Lastly, rounding out this moveset is the anxiety-inducing Ancient Power. With every time this move is used, there comes a chance for Groudon to gain an attack, special attack, defense, and speed buff all at once. If this happens, almost all hope is immediately lost. Buffing Mudshot's damage as well as Slash, on top of doubling Groudon's action economy for a limited time, while we have half the action economy. Every time Ancient Power is used, all we can do is pray he doesn't get all but guaranteed victory. But while Groudon is out of moves for us to talk about, they're not out of options. With all the attack boosts that Groudon gains, even something like the regular attack becomes a highly destructive issue for us to deal with. Groudon's regular attack is capable of taking Mouse out in just 2 hits with enough attack boosts. Yeah, that's right, this oversized sand gecko has the sheer audacity to show us up at our own game. It is unsurprising then that when we go to fight this Titan, we lose without even getting close. This fight is simply far too brutal. Mouse is only capable of doing about 9 to 11 damage a hit, thanks to in no small part to all the gummies we ate. Meanwhile, Cat, who hadn't consumed the gummies, is stuck at a measly 4 to 5 damage a hit. In a perfectly ideal situation, this fight lasts at least 30 turns. And that's if A, we high roll 60 times in a row, B, Groudon never buffs their defense, C, no speed altering effects are used for the entire fight, and D, we somehow actually manage to survive the 30 turns needed to knock Groudon out. No matter how you slice it, it appears we are stuck in quite the pickle here, with nothing that we've ever done before offering a way out of this roadblock. Our only hope would be to burst Groudon down with really high damage before any defense boost can take effect, but only thing that could get us that kind of damage would be Extra Striker Skitty, which we don't have. With no other options here, it's time to resort to our hidden trump card. While the rules of this challenge strictly ban the usage of items on enemies, they never say anything about items on ourselves. Hence why we can use orange berries, apples, and reviver seeds in the first place. Enter the Violent Seed. This rare as all hell little seed is one very potent and game-breaking item. When you eat a Violent Seed, it instantly maxes out both the attack and special attack of a Pokemon. And unlike the move Belly Drum, this item has 0 drawbacks. Well, if you ignore the very real drawback of actually having to find one in the first place. Rare item and all that. However, lucky for me, I have absolutely no life, and before the expedition arc properly began, I farmed up 2 of these rare and precious seeds within those several hours of grinding done back in Chapter 6. With the power of Violent Seeds at the start of the fight, we might be able to deal just enough damage to win the fight before Groudon can set up their bulk ups or use Ancient Powers and totally wall us out of the fight. The only problem with this plan so far, I left the Violent Seeds in storage, so that means we have to go all the way through Steam Cave and again in order to retrieve them. But while we're down at the storage, we also grabbed 5 orange berries and 15 reviver seeds for the upcoming boss fight. It would have been more, but Upper Steam Cave made us use like 7 orange berries and a reviver seed. That dungeon is a permanent monster house and all that jazz. But after that, we reach Groudon's lair again and can do this, finally, once and for all. Regardless of the outcome, we've used both our Violent Seeds in this fight. If we fail now, the run is soft-locked and we have to give it up. With everything on the line, Cat and Mouse give each other one last little look and a rousing speech, and we charge headfirst into this fight. The first 2 turns of the fight are spent with Mouse and Cat eating one of the 2 Violent Seeds, and the 3rd turn is spent healing Cat with an orange berry after a critical slash. We can't let Cat go down because Reviver Seeds reset your stat changes, meaning if we go down, the Violent Seeds are gone. And as if responding directly to Mouse feeding an orange berry to Cat, Groudon hits Mouse with a Mud Shot, taking out half his health and ruining our action economy. We can't rely on orange berries anymore like this. But, thankfully, with the Violent Seed boosting our damage, Mouse does about 30 damage in a hit, and Cat isn't slacking off either with about 16 to 17 damage a hit as well. We trade blows like it's Dragon Ball Z punch fight, but when Groudon has lost about 120 of his health, he lands an Ancient Power on a slowed down low health Mouse, knocking him out and losing our Violent Seed buffs for the rest of the fight. With the Violent Seed's power gone from Mouse, our damage has dropped greatly, and after a few turns of Ancient Power failing to get boosts, Groudon at 193 damage uses their first Bulk Up. Thankfully, while Mouse may have lost their Violent Seeds, Cat still has its power flowing through him. Both fighting hard against the defense boosts, our damage now is looking at about 8 on Mouse and 13 to 15 on Cat. After a few more close calls with Ancient Power landing but not getting any boosts, Groudon has about 100 HP left. Tragically, it is right here that Groudon uses one more Bulk Up, and we realize that we're out of Orange Berries, after Cat gets brought down to low health by a critical slash. At only 75 HP remaining, Groudon is able to take out Cat with an Ancient Power, leaving us all alone to fight this monster with +2 defense. With Cat no longer able to do damage to Groudon from the defense boost it has, Mouse is able to deal 5 damage, before Groudon destroys our hopes once and for all with one final Bulk Up. And it's raised its defense to +3 with only 70 HP left. At this point, all hope is basically lost. We've lost the power of our Violent Seeds, and all of our Orange Berries are gone. Now Groudon has grown enough defense for Mouse to deal 3 damage in a single hit. We just don't have enough time in this fight to take out Groudon's remaining 70 hit points with just our regular attack. And even if we did, Groudon can still raise their defense even higher. We've unfortunately lost. Our only saving grace right now is that we have about 12 Reviver Seeds left in our inventory, but they can't help us with our damage, they can only help us with healing. Those are the only 2 Violent Seeds we had. We really have no control over how we can win here. Is our only hope really to just restart this entire run from the start with Skitty instead of Cat? But like, could I really live with myself if we just go and replace our friend like that? Trade them for a better partner because they just can't keep up? Cat has been our loyal friend, fighting side by side with us this entire time. Sure, he's not perfect, he's had us reload our save file a few times with Iron Thorns or Geopebbles, but he's never given up, no matter how hard the odds may have seemed. It doesn't matter how weak we are. It doesn't matter how powerless we seem. As long as we can still fight, we will never give up. No, not all hope is lost. I'll believe in this friend I have right here, right by my side. To hell with putting a Bathos response on this moment, where we just go, yep, that's exactly what we did. Sure, this Groudon's strong, and we are weak. But even if we are weak, we can struggle on. We can fight till the very end. Mouse strikes at Groudon, 3 damage. And Cat strikes for a single point of damage? Wait, what? Mouse strikes again, 3 damage, and Cat strikes with 1 damage again. I must have lost track of their defense. Cat shouldn't be able to hurt it. Mouse strikes again with another 3 damage, and Cat does no damage. Weird, must be just weird damage rolls or something. Groudon takes no damage from Cat again, but Mouse is still doing that 3 damage. And he's now used Bulk Up. It's over for real now, I guess. We got an extra 14 damage in on him at least at the end. He's about 56 health left, but we can't hurt him anymore. Oh, wait, Mouse is doing damage? And Cat did a point of damage. Cat can still harm it? Wait, but how? And another point of damage from Cat. But Groudon's defense should be way too high for Cat to be able to do that. What is going on here? Can we still win this? And as if in response to this growing sentiment, Groudon is out of power points for Slash and Static Procs. We can definitely still win this. After a very, very repetitive fight, we're down to 8 Reviver Seeds and 25 HP left for Groudon. A desperate slap fight breaks out between the 2 exhausted combatants. Groudon trying to use their powers, but unable to muster the strength, while our heroes continue to hold on to the mere threads they are dangling by. With only 15 HP left, Groudon tries one last desperate plea for their life. using 2 more bulk ups while desperately trying to cling to their strength? Or is it a pathetic attempt to scare Cat and Mouse off? No, we aren't scared. Not anymore! Together with one final strike of a single damage point, together with one final paper cut, Groudon goes down, and Team Davids takes this Goliath to the ground. But wait, how did that fight even work? Sometimes we were doing no damage, and sometimes we were doing 1 damage when we really shouldn't have, according to their defense. Well, it seems like the answer was a hidden mechanic the devs implemented when making the damage formula. It seems they added a failsafe system of a chance to increase the damage by 1 if the damage was 0 in order to avoid a situation like the one we just encountered. Similar to how the main series does it, but making it an RNG chance instead of guaranteed. I have no clue who that unsung developer hero was, but thanks to them, this run can continue onwards in one of the coolest ways possible. That last fight was an incredibly awesome fight that lasted over 50 or so turns, but man was it cool. But while Mouse and Cat are enjoying the treasure of Fogbound Lake together, happy now that the end of the run isn't threatening to tear Mouse and Cat into Mouse and Cat, this is unfortunately where we're out of time in this video. So far, this run has been a hectic journey, and while I could cut down on certain aspects of this video and not explain the run in full, only going over the highlights we face, fitting all of the main story and the post-game story in a single video is still really unfeasible, even with skipping over most of this run. So, as a compromise, I'll regrettably have to mark this section here as the end of part 1, and get to posting the other parts at a later date. If you're curious about how the run goes in full, I'll leave a link to the playlist containing all the stream VODs over the run in the description, along with some timestamps, episodes you should check out if you're only interested in the highlights of this run. But with all that said, and out of the way, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And this is Lapis, your slime host, and the night shift is finally over, so I'm gonna sign off here. Goodbye!